Hello, welcome to another commentary. This time we're checking out She-Ra versus Wonder Woman.
She-Ra, She-Ra.
Oh my gosh, oh no. We're already off the rails. I'm Ben, voice of Wiz, and I'm joined by Liam Swan.
I'm the writer and the researcher, and that's the two things that I am. Thank you very much.
Yes, that is what you are. And so, She-Ra versus Wonder Woman. This is an episode that has been requested since the dawn of Death Battle.
Yeah.
Realistically, even with the new She-Ra reboot coming out and things like that, even before all that, She-Ra versus Wonder Woman was one of the classic matchups, just given their power sets and sword swinging abilities.
It's a kind of an obvious. Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, you think there's definitely I think some differences between the two that people might consider as separating them, like the transformation and things like that.
Yeah.
Although Wonder Woman did have a magical girl transformation back in the day.
I feel like very much the 1970s, whatever the actress's name is, I'm failing on right now. But yeah, definitely that's very She-Ra. These two characters, they have a lot of suggestions for other characters as well. Like Wonder Woman has a ton of suggestions, She-Ra does as well. But so it's just a matter of like putting them together in whatever makes the most sense, and they work really well together. It's immediately interesting when I found out about this match. Like, okay, so we got DC crazy bullshit comic feats, and we also have like stupid 80s He-Man cartoon feats. And so how are those going to compare?
Especially after we did... This is a matchup that I didn't even really consider back in the day. I had seen requests since the beginning of Death Battle, but I wasn't really sure how well it stacked up until we did He-Man versus Lion-O.
Yeah.
Again, when I say back in the day, I mean like way back. And He-Man versus Lion-O was, kind of a ridiculous episode.
Absolutely. That's one of my favorites. I think it still remains one of my favorites. Just the whole theming of it. But yeah, once you see He-Man like kind of just effortlessly kind of grunt and like push a moon, you go, okay, well, there's something we can do here. It's not like She-Ra's gonna get fucking annihilated in one hit. There's definitely some. Oh yeah, that's my favorite one where she carves a lake out of the ground and then throws it.
Yes,
to put out a fire.
the super absurd He-Man style feats where reality just doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, like where did that
that
rock and earth land? Like you'd think that if it put out the fire, then it would also kill everyone upon contact.
He-Man and She-Ra fall into this like interesting in between of like Toon Force and ridiculous comic book logic.
Yeah,
where like Wonder Woman has comic book logic, right? Like reality doesn't necessarily apply to a character like Wonder Woman, but she's not gonna do stuff like cut up a lake and throw it over
it's
a
a
town.
Specific flavor. Like, of course Wonder Woman is physically capable of lifting a lake, but she would never do that because that's insane.
The reality she exists in wouldn't allow it to happen.
It would frown upon something like that. Other shit though, like whatever. If you flavor it more Grant Morrison, then that's fine, I guess.
If it gets super stylistic and it's like the lake is being held together by the magnetic field of the earth because
exactly.
The gods of the universe are willing it in order for her to fulfill her destiny, that kind of thing. Yeah, of course. But that gets into comic book logic.
She can lift the platonic ideal of a lake.
Yes. Whereas She-Ra and He-Man are just like, we can lift a giant water lake today.
Borderline sociopathic in their like glee and kind of obliviousness to destruction.
And who cares how physics work?
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. Which also makes figuring out their limits, in my opinion, a little trickier.
Yeah.
Than somebody like Wonder Woman. Just because it's like, okay, so we can determine, her strength and whatnot, but like, do we apply the wonkiness of her world as well? Yeah.
They don't. There's not a lot of moments where they struggle, and when they do struggle, it's ironically the feats that are the least impressive.
There's a lot of inconsistency.
Yeah,
yes.
like she effortlessly kicks a moon, but she struggles to like lift a tower or something like that. It's a little dumb.
Because classic Shiro was never meant to be considered in the way that we, do for Death Battle. Let
Yeah, of
alone,
course.
classic Shiro was never meant to be considered as like a storytelling epic or anything.
No,
frankly.
it's a toy commercial.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of random commercials written by a bunch of different people who had different ideas of what to do with these characters. And some of them were like, we'll make her a warrior chick today. It'll be like Xena, warrior princess.
can completely
and other people are
understand.
like, Superman.
Yeah, exactly. I can completely understand the nostalgia for those old 80s cartoons.
There's a charm.
There's a charm to it. Absolutely. But as someone that didn't grow up watching them, it was a struggle because they really are like they're enormous toy commercials. So it's the farthest thing from like no one working on that was like, yeah, I think in 40 years they're gonna do an internet show where they're gonna calculate the density and the mass and the speed at which she kicks this fucking moon that I just drew on a Saturday afternoon because yeah, I think that applies to most characters in the show that we do. Like this, there's no intention that these characters be
for
calculated.
Sure. But even just as a storytelling medium,
Yeah.
Just going through She-Ra, binging something like He-Man or She-Ra, I think is difficult.
Because intensely.
It was never meant to be watched like that.
God.
It was never meant to
God.
be engaging like that. It was meant to be a
so
commercial.
Difficult.
Whereas, like the new She-Ra, the Netflix She-Ra, you absolutely can because it's got a fantastic story and it's
a show.
Yeah, and man, part of me kind of wishes we were using that She-Ra because I love that show a lot.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
Yes.
The final season came out right around the same time as this episode is airing, so obviously we wouldn't have been able to like get all that information in time, which honestly it wouldn't work out anyway because the 5th season kind of establishes that new She-Ra is very different from classic She-Ra. Even their power source is entirely different. So I don't want to get into spoilers since it just came out, but it's a very, very different She-Ra.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be able to match her powers with
the
old school or comic book.
However much of it there was when we did research. I watched the show and it was like the broad strokes were similar, but it was the concepts behind the magic were different. Like it was in terms of general setting, it was like a technology, like a super advanced technology, rather than like spoopy. Well,
again, I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but like I believe you got into season 4, so you probably got to the point where it's revealed. Shit.
I didn't get
the She-Ra that we're watching for a very long. Oh, you didn't?
Season 4,
okay.
No.
Yeah, because we kind of established that we weren't using it because new She-Ra, the She-Ra that was revealed that everybody was like, she looks like a boy because she's like a kid.
Yeah.
That's an artificial She-Ra.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun! Surprise. But I don't want to get too much into it. So yeah, a very different power source, very different abilities overall. Much better show. Yes. Much better show.
It's a show. It's a modern show that is designed to be.
Season 5 is so good. You need to catch up, dude.
Yeah.
Season 5 is so good. Anyway, we're way off topic.
I know you on Twitter. You mentioned who Best Girl is, and I just have to put my hat into the ring for my girl Entrapta.
Entrapta's so good.
That's my girl. Okay.
I mean, Best Girl for me is Mermista, but I could be persuaded for Scorpio or Entrapta any day. Yeah. Anyway, here is the Shattered God feat. Because of course that comes up. Of course that is the big
as a researcher,
reason why spoilers, Wonder Woman freaking wins.
As a researcher, this getting bringing up the Shattered God feat was like the first super fucking crazy DC feat that we had in this. Not that blowing up planets and shit wasn't crazy before, but the idea that you could move at quintillions of times the speed of light had yet to have been breached on this show. So I remember that. I was like, okay, we're gonna I'm gonna bring up the Shattered God feat. Are we gonna accept it? Is it gonna go through? It did. Oh my god. Okay. And then it was just more and more digging, and it's like, oh god, quintillions of times the speed of light. How passe.
Because at a certain point you got to say like, okay, if this is true, does the rest of Wonder Woman's story support this concept?
Yeah.
That she can move this fast, and if it doesn't, how do we explain it?
Yeah.
Because we can't just ignore something. We've talked about outliers before, and the concept of like, I am not a big fan of just pushing a feat to the side and ignoring it completely just because it doesn't match up with other things that have happened.
Yeah.
I don't think that is a reasonable way to take things because it did happen.
Yeah.
That feat did happen. There just has to be some sort of explanation. If it seems like it's out of the ordinary for that character, we have to come up with some kind of explanation for why that makes sense, why they're capable of doing that. And most of the time, you can kind of reason that, like, oh, well, these certain characters were not at their best that day, probably. Like, maybe this opponent they were fighting just wasn't doing their best thing. Like, big characters like Galactus is a great example.
Yeah.
Iron Man shot Galactus and he flinched or whatever, you know? Okay, Galactus just wasn't at his best that day.
Galactus is always starving. That is Galactus's normal, is that he is always starving. So
he just caught him off guard at the end. Moving on.
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of reasoning.
Exactly.
Wonder Woman and the Shattered God feat is a little different in that basically the only conclusion that we can come to is that this is her at her maximum.
Yeah.
Like when she really, really, really pushes herself.
Yes.
This is what she can ultimately achieve. It is just very difficult for her to reach that level.
And when you look at like other DC characters for context, you realize that like crossing the universe is like everyone's done that. It's like a Sunday afternoon for these guys. Superman, Green Lantern, The Flash, Darkseid, Dr. Fate. Like I'm just listing them off like my brain. It's just unfortunately they all have like some bullshit super crazy speed feat.
There's a lot of that in the DC, just in comic books in general.
Yeah. In any franchise, it's been like the longer. It's not like DC isn't special. I don't think. It's the fact that it's been around for so long. Like any franchise that's been around for a long time and has consistent material being made is going to get crazy feats just as a matter of like
of this nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because more time is passing. So yeah, and here we go.
The final blow.
Ooh.
And that's it.
It's okay. Band-Aid.
Yeah, somebody patch that up, man.
Somebody staple
Come
it.
on.
Get some Gorilla Glue. She'll be fine. Rub some dirt in that stump.
Oh, man. This animation was led by Christina, who's been leading 3D animation for us for a while now. Yeah. Fantastic work by her and the team. We definitely went a more subdued route with this one, because the last time we had Wonder Woman Death Battle, we were like blowing up moons and shit, man.
Yeah.
This time I really want to focus on the sword dueling aspect between the two characters, because their weaponry and their weapon skills is such an important part of both of them that I thought that was probably the best aspect to focus on for the fight. And also to create... We don't really have a whole lot of death battles, strangely enough, that are purely like sword fights. They're like, who has the better sword?
We're the opposite of Smash Brothers.
But I mean, we have so many characters that have swords. It's just that more often than not, what we want to explore all of their abilities, and so the swords end up becoming like less important.
Yes.
The sole exception maybe being Urza versus Zoro from back in the day. But because both of these characters are ridiculous, they can be ridiculous while wielding weaponry. It was like, yeah, we can totally focus on this and make it a cool high speed sword fight.
And in Wonder Woman comics and She-Ra cartoons and comics, it's not every, even though they're capable of blowing up planets, not every fight they have is blowing up a planet. So it's we're not losing anything by having this kind of subdued fight, and I think it allows us more options rather than like
there is something to be said about representing a character to their maximum ability. I think plenty of people do visit. Like, for example, if we have a very powerful Dragon Ball character in a death battle and they don't blow up something big, it might feel a little weird because, like, that is what Dragon Ball. Well, those top tier Dragon Ball characters are known for is the big explosive moments. Yeah. Wonder Woman is a little different in that she can be seen as a finesse character as well.
Doesn't kill.
So it works really well.
Billions of people.
She's not constantly blowing up people.
She generally has kind of an issue with that. It makes her a little squeamish. Has to hold back a little bit.
Oh man. I love the comparison here by of all things using My Little Pony essentially with the stupid flying horse. Crystal Sundancer. It totally sounds like, I mean, that's gotta be what was considered when they were originally making these characters, like,
oh god,
She-Ra's gotta ride on a My Little Pony.
Oh yeah.
Was My Little Pony even around back then?
I have no I
actually
idea.
Don't know off the top of my head.
Crystal Sundancer sounds like it was put into like a random name generator. It sounds like the Wu-Tang Clan name generator.
I mean, it sounds like if you were to look up a My Little Pony name generator, it would be one of the options.
Yeah.
Frankly, it just sounds like a My Little Pony name just in general. Like, I'm sure if you went to the MLP Wikipedia and typed in Crystal Sundancer, something would come
also
up.
Also, like Skywalker, right? It's a Skywalker thing.
Yeah. Anyway, that is the mid-season finale for Death Battle. The next episode will be airing in August.
Yo.
We got a break. We got a bit of a break.
Yeah.
And that episode will be Beerus versus, I don't know. We haven't actually revealed it yet. We'll be announcing that as we get closer to August. But in the meantime, feel free to enjoy DBX and vote on those matchups.
Yep.
It's going to be exciting. Thank you for joining me, Liam.
Absolutely. This was a blast, as always.
Thank you for working on this episode.
Of course.
I know comic book characters can be difficult
to
work on.
Tear rolls down my cheek every time.
Yes. And we will see you all in the next commentary.
Hasta.
Thank you so much for watching and listening.
La pasta.